Dayglo Books are books that are designed to be read by people who are dyslexic. And they're not learning materials, they're simply books to read for pleasure. And anybody can read them. You don't have to be dyslexic, but if you are dyslexic, they have some adaptations to them that remove many of the obstacles to reading that dyslexic people find in conventional books. One of the main things is that the typeface has been specially chosen. It was designed in 2013, particularly for dyslexic readers, and it is helpful. We know that it is an easier to read typeface, and it's also quite large. The page is spacious and well laid out. It's more like commercial correspondence is laid out than like traditional books are laid out. A lot of space between the lines and space between the paragraphs, and also a ragged right-hand margin, not an aligned right-hand margin. And that makes life a lot easier for dyslexic people. They're not so likely to lose their place because they're not confronted with solid paragraphs that look like very large blocks of type. One of the things that we do that's different from conventional books is that we don't print on white paper, because black print on white paper is one of the things that causes problems. It can make the print appear to dazzle because of the contrast between the bright white paper and the black print. So a lot of the books are printed on cream, but our most recent titles have been printed on different colours of paper. And we have got one book that you can actually get the same book on a choice of 6 different tinted backgrounds. This book, for example, has been printed on a choice of 6 different colours of paper. And as you can see, if I flick to the back, the book is not printed on coloured paper. It's printed on white paper, and we have chosen to print these different tints onto the white paper. So the one I have in my hand at the moment is printed on blue paper. And this one, the same title, it's printed on pink. So you have the choice to read it on pink. Then there's yet another, and this one is green. And dyslexic people know what colour works best for them, and they will choose the colour that will be the most helpful for them in dealing with the contrast issues. So we have another one here that's printed on cream, and another one here that's printed on grey, and the 6th one is printed on yellow. Very often, dyslexic people, when they're reading a conventional book, will have a clear tinted acetate overlay that they put across the page to dampen down the contrast. And the idea is to use the same principle as the overlay, and in fact the colours are based on the colours of the overlays. But of course the overlay can't give you a different typeface, it can't give you a more spacious page layout, and it can't give you a ragged right-hand margin. But by printing the colour on the page, then you've got the best of all worlds. To develop the tinted backgrounds, I had help from a wonderful man called Professor Arnold Wilkins from Essex University, who is a pioneer of the tinted acetate overlays. He's also the man who invented the machine that optometrists use to prescribe tinted reading glasses for dyslexic people. And he provided the colour values that are used for that purpose, and then with the great help of the graphic designer who works with me on these books, we translated those values into printing ink values in order to produce equivalent colours for the pages in the books. I searched online to find books that were produced for dyslexic readers and found nothing. And I began looking, and it's very easy to find the things that are recommended, particularly by the British Dyslexia Association, as the most useful things to do to help with reading for dyslexic people. But nobody had ever incorporated these things into books. There's learning materials that have been produced, of course, but not books to read for pleasure. And reading for pleasure is such a fundamental thing because it allows you to see the world through somebody else's eyes. Whether you're reading fiction or non-fiction, it puts you in the position of someone other than yourself. Therefore, you see something in a way you've never seen it before, and it piques your imagination. It makes you think differently. The value of reading for pleasure cannot be overemphasized. It really does increase people's empathy when they see that their view of the world is not the only view of the world. And of course, it gives excitement. It makes you laugh, and it makes you cry, and it makes your toes curl up with excitement to know what's going to happen next. And I can't imagine, as a fluent reader, how my life would have been different if I had not been able to read. And I want everybody to be able to have that experience. It's not difficult nowadays. With digital printing, anything is possible. And there's no reason why everyone has to be provided with books produced in a conventional way when they cannot read those books. It isn't their fault that they can't read the books. So let's change the books. Let's give them books they can read. And it's perfectly possible to do that. I've proved this. And I know from the feedback that I've had from dyslexic people that it works. I have a friend whose job is supporting dyslexic students in further and higher education. And she came to see me about 4 years ago now and showed me a new typeface that had been developed in 2013 by a man called Abelardo Gonzalez. And the typeface is called Open Dyslexic. And the interesting thing about it is that it appears to be thicker at the bottom of each letter than it does at the top. His idea is that because some dyslexic readers see the print appearing to jump up and down, that psychologically having it thicker at the bottom anchors it down to the line so that the type appears more stable. And I was absolutely fascinated by this. So I began then to look at what other things can be done to make life easier for dyslexic readers. And there are a lot of things, particularly the British Dyslexia Association, suggests all kinds of slight adaptations. So I started to look for books that are produced like that. And of course there are none. The only thing that sometimes people have done is to produce an out-of-copyright classic book and print it in a different typeface. But they haven't made any of the other adaptations. And I don't think that that really is a great deal of help. I think you need to work in all of the adaptations together. It's like if you imagine a horse race, if you imagine the Grand National, and many horses fall trying to get over the obstacles along the course. And dyslexic readers fall at the obstacles. If you remove the obstacles, it becomes a flat race, and it's very easy to get to the end. And this is really the principle, is that you remove as many obstacles to reading as you can so that you make it a smooth, uninterrupted experience. And one of the things is to keep the books relatively short. You don't put a big meal in front of somebody who has a small appetite. You don't want to outface them. So we keep the books to about 100 pages. And then people have got reasonable expectation that they will get to the end. We don't put War and Peace in front of them because it's daunting. We do it with something that they can be pretty sure once started they will get to the finish. And I do know from feedback that children and adults will stick to a book once they've got into the story because they want to know what happens next, they want to know how it finishes, and they do read them to the end. If you want to buy Dayglo books, you can find them all on our website, www.dayglobooks.co.uk, and you might also be interested to look at my regular blogs, which appear on social media and on the website also. I have quite a lot of ideas that I like to express about dyslexia, and I've also got some things you can download that are fun things as well, and videos and things to look at, not just myself but other people talking about the subject, which I think you might find interesting. Some of the people who write the books that Dayglo Books publish are dyslexic themselves. Not everybody, some people are not, but dyslexic people can do anything. There is no limit to what people can do. And because you or somebody you know may be dyslexic, it does not bar them from any ambition that they have or from anything that they want to do.